Hello, everybody, and welcome to another breaking news episode of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh. I told you at the end of the Anthony Beauvillier trade video that, hey, I might see you in 5 minutes. It might be 10 minutes, and it was a little bit longer, but Dylan Kyle Dubas did it again, and we still have, as of this recording, 2 hours until the NHL's trade deadline. The Pittsburgh Penguins, in their latest move, have sent defenseman Luke Schenn to the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for a 2026 second-round pick and a 2027 fourth-round pick. Now, before we get into Schenn, let's talk a little bit about these picks. They recoup a fourth-round pick that was sent out initially in the Wednesday trade. It's not the same pick. It's not the same year, but they sent out a fourth-round pick along with Michael Bunting to bring back Tommy Novak, and Luke Schenn. So they recoup that fourth-round pick from Wednesday's trade, and they also add on that second rounder in 2026, which makes me extremely happy because now the Penguins have 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 second-round picks in the 2026 draft. And why that's important? Well, just because most experts believe that the 2026 draft is going to be extremely deep and extremely talented, and the Penguins are stocking up to help their rebuild, retool, whatever you want to call it, to get as many kicks at the can as some of those talented players in the 2026 draft. Now, let's talk about Schenn a little bit. Like I mentioned, if you're somebody sitting here saying, didn't they just trade for Luke Schenn? Why would they trade him away? There's a couple of reasons. First, Luke Schenn asked them to. According to Josh Yohe of The Athletic on Twitter shortly after the trade, he said, quote, Luke Schenn told the Penguins that he wanted to play for a contender. The Penguins initially wanted to keep him. So Luke Schenn asked them. He wanted to go to a contender. The Penguins are far from it as it currently stands. And for most players, especially one that's 35 years old like Luke Schenn, it's hard to believe that they're going to get there expeditiously. They might. Kyle Dubas has a plan, and if it executes perfectly, then by the end of Sidney Crosby's career, they will once again be a contending team. But as it stands right now, they're not. So Luke Schenn wanted to go to a contending team. He ends up with the Winnipeg Jets. And secondly, because this is the value for Luke Schenn and this is the market right now, a second-round pick for a player that is 35 years old, but is, for the most part, a depth defenseman. He's a good defensive defenseman. He's a good leader. He's a physical guy. But at the end of the day, any other year, you're probably not getting a second-round pick for Luke Schenn. And the Pittsburgh Penguins were able to swing that for a defenseman that played 0 minutes of ice time for their organization. So a good move by Kyle Dubas once again. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to say, it's only a good move if you can follow it up, if you can draft players that turn into something. But that is something that right now, all the Penguins can do is get as much as humanly possible in the organization as far as assets, whether that's prospects, whether that is young NHL-ready talent, or whether that is draft picks. Just stockpile that as much as you can. That way, going forward, Kyle Dubas has as much ammunition as he needs to turn this ship around as quickly as possible. And this trade certainly moves them further down that line. Now, when it comes to the Penguins on the ice, I'm just going to mention this really briefly. Another reason I'm happy about this trade, it gives me more of an opportunity, and Penguins fans as a whole, more of an opportunity to see the youngster, Vladislav Kolyachonok. Whenever the first move happened on Wednesday and Vincent Desharnais was traded to the San Jose Sharks, it feels like forever ago, I said one of the good things about this is Kolyachonok is probably going to stay in the lineup, especially because he can play on the left, he can play on the right, and it felt like Desharnais moving gave Kolyachonok that opportunity to just stand pat, third pairing, right shot defenseman. And then they trade for Luke Schenn about 25 minutes later, and I said, all right, well, that got a little bit more murky. Again, Penguins valued Schenn and what he brought to the table, but with trading him away, I'm excited to see Kolyachonok continue to get opportunities in the Penguins lineup. And the last thing I will leave you with here, before we get off of this episode and inevitably come back on another episode, probably in 25 minutes, is that this adds to an already very, very fun and very interesting Jake Guentzel trade tree. Some people don't care about that, and to be honest, it does very little of anything other than provide entertainment. But we all love trade trees. The Jim Norton trade tree that started back in the early 2000s is one that we always reference that ended up with guys like Phil Kessel, guys like Patrick Hornqvist, guys like not Brandon Sutter, but Nick Spaulding, all on that specific trade tree. I think Matt Niskanen and James Neal were on that trade tree. So it's a fun exercise to go back and look upon. We're getting that similar start from the Jake Guentzel trade tree. Guentzel was traded in last March for Michael Bunting, Ville Koivunen, Vasily Ponomarev, Cruz Lucius, and a second-round pick that eventually turned into Harrison Brunick. Now, there's a second branch on that, and it's the Michael Bunting branch from Wednesday, which is Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn. And now, as another subset, there's going to be a Luke Schenn branch, which is the second-round pick and the fourth-round pick that the Pittsburgh Penguins just acquired for the 35-year-old defenseman. So if you look at it now, if you're looking at the big scoreboard, the Penguins traded away Jake Guentzel, which set them off on this rebuild. And they have seven current assets stemming from that Jake Guentzel trade. Koivunen and Ponomarev, who are both lighting up the American Hockey League and could be ready to go to the NHL as early as next season. Cruz Lucius, who's playing very well in the college ranks. Second-round pick Harrison Brunick, who has, as of right now, the Penguins' most prolific right-shot defensive prospect in the organization. Tommy Novak, who a lot of people are excited about, 27 years old, center ice position, as of right now, probably the third best center the Penguins have in their organization, as well as a second and a fourth-round pick that we'll see what happens with. Whether they draft those players and we see how their careers turn out, or whether he flips them. Kyle Dubas flipped Vincent Desharnais. He flipped Luke Schenn. There's a chance he flips one of, if not both of, these two picks, especially considering, as I mentioned, the Penguins have 3 picks in the second round of the 2026 draft. So a lot of fun to be had about this trade. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fun to be had on the other trades that we will see today, still possibly being on the move. Noel Acciari, Matt Grzelcyk, Rickard Rakell. I forgot to mention Luke Schenn because, to be honest, he hasn't even practiced with the Pittsburgh Penguins, so I forgot he was on the roster for a second. That's how hectic the trade deadline day is this year for the Pittsburgh Penguins. But Kyle Dubas, he's done a lot, and it feels like with just under 2 hours until the deadline, he might be doing some more. But that's going to do it for this breaking news edition of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh. If you like this video, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, especially on deadline day when we are going to be coming at you with breaking news video after breaking news video. Or if you prefer it, you can find us anywhere you get your podcast from. We'll see you guys next time.